Torah Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neese from Torah Life Ministries, and it is time for this week's Torah reading. And we are looking at the 28th reading this year, which is Leviticus 14:1 to 15:33. And you know, as a health teacher, I try to keep people as healthy as possible. But when an issue arises and something is wrong, what do? Well, this week in this week's reading, we see an issue arising. We see the issue, which is a skin disorder, and we see that there are instructions given about this particular skin disorder and what there is to do. But it goes here, it says here in the beginning of this week's reading in Leviticus 14:1, our Creator said to Moses, whenever you hear that, it's not Moses, his own ideas of telling us what to do. It's our Creator communicating through Moses what he wants us to do. And he gives us the instructions, and he gave them to Moses here, and he said, this is the law or the guidelines or the Torah concerning the person afflicted with tzara'at. Now I know I don't pronounce all the words correctly, but tzara'at was a so-called skin disorder during these times that there was no known cure for according to modern medicine, but our Creator has the cure. Just like today, we might not have a cure for many diseases, but our Creator has the cure. So if our Creator tells us through prayer, through the Word, or through someone else, this is what you are to do to get well, well then we must do it. But he talks about this skin disorder, and some people say this was leprosy, and I say no, it's not, because they would have called it leprosy. It was something different. It was a skin disorder that you couldn't easily get rid of. And it didn't only affect a person, it affected a person's clothes, it affected their house, it affected a lot more than just a person. The bottom line is a cleansing must take place for somebody to get well again. And part of the cleansing is not only a physical cleansing, but also a spiritual cleansing. And the way we do that is maybe we've been disobedient with our Creator and not listened to His words or not taken action on His words. It's time we get obedient with Him and we cleanse our heart of any fleshly desires to avoid what He has to say. And he says here, the law concerning the person affected with this tzara'at. And it says he is to be brought to the Kohen to be examined. And he cannot be considered clean again until the Kohen, my priest, say he is clean again. And so the Kohen is taking the place of the doctor here. And but more important, the Kohen is Yahweh's guide to say, okay, now you're okay or now you're not okay. And then the whole verses get into exactly what the person needs to do from a physical and spiritual point to be considered okay or clean again, so they no longer have this illness. And the illness is not something we catch from somebody else. The illness is something that we get based on I believe, our disobedience, based on our distrust, based on our lack of faith. It's a curse that comes for not being obedient. And when we get obedient again, we get the blessing of being free from this curse, of being healthy. It says here in Leviticus 14:33, again, our Creator said to Moses and Aaron, when you have entered the land of Canaan, which I am giving you as a possession. So after you've left Egypt, after you've went through the desert, made it through all that, and when you enter the land, and remember, supposedly the only people that enter the land are going to be different than the people that left, because all those people died in the desert. So here's a new people. When you enter the land, it says, and I put an affection of tzara'at in a house in a land that you possess. So this means some of the people that were in the desert that went into the new land, who were mingling with the people that came out of Egypt who were disobedient, learned and kept that disobedience when they got into the new land, and our Creator affected them with this tzara'at for whatever the reason was. Some people say the reason might have been lashon hara, they were talking bad things or saying bad things. Other people say it's just their actions, they had no faith. Other people say they mingled too much with the Canaanites when they went there, because it says later on in the scriptures, when you go into the new land, you are to find all the people that are unclean, separate and divide yourself, and destroy every unclean thing. But the people didn't do that. The people went in the land and they mingled the seed. They mingled with the unclean people. And here it goes, it says, I put an infection of tzara'at in a house in the land that you possess. So this infection was put on the people after they left Egypt, after they've left the desert, of the people that supposedly were now in the promised land. And again, the only way to be clean again is to be obedient, but you need to officially be considered clean by the priest of our Creator. And he's given them the instructions and the information of how a person is to be cleansed and to be cleaned. So again, it's not their idea, it's him telling them what to say and what to do. A lot of times we see certain things in scriptures that we might not agree with or we might not understand, but he said it. That's why we have to understand it. He said in the scriptures what is clean and unclean, what is good and bad, what is holy and unholy. And he said there are going to be consequences if you do not heed to my instructions. If you do not follow my word, there will be consequences. This tzara'at was something, to my knowledge, that nobody who was righteous suffered from. It was only people that there was something unrighteous in their heart that they did in their actions that caused this problem. But we saw and see throughout Scripture that people can and were cleansed from this curse. And if you're suffering from any disease or any curse out there today, understand, if you get right with His Word and follow His instructions, you can be cleansed too. This week's reading was a very powerful reading, and it goes on to lay the foundation and the understanding of, just because we've made it out of slavery, just because we've made it out of the hard times of the desert, and now that we're in the new land, is not a reason to drop our guard and think, okay, we're okay now. This is what I see people doing now, because you have the scriptures where you see people in the original covenant. What they're doing is many times they're kept in slavery, or they're being controlled by food or water or something else or someone else. But then Messiah comes and they get out of that. But then they go back, and they go back into their own evil deeds, and they go back into their disobedience, and then they suffer again. He will cleanse and He will heal you if you're obedient, but if you're not, you will suffer. Just because it seems like you're out of the hard times doesn't mean the hard times can't come back to you. It's about obedience, folks. We must be obedient to His Word. Yes, I said it once and I'll say it many times in the future. We're saved only through the blood of Messiah. But if we're truly saved, we should have every passion and desire to do His works. And no one is released from His Torah, His instructions, and His guideline. He gave them to us for a reason, whether it's through Moses, whether it's through the priest, or whether it's through your best friend down the block or a stranger you never met. If there are instructions that come from Him, we are to follow them, and that's where blessings come. And if we disobey, that's where curses come in. It says in James 4:17, to know good and not to do it, to him it is sin. We might not know everything He wants us to do or how He wants us to do it, but when we find out, then what are we going to do? That's the question. It's our job to study His Word and to find out what He wants us to do, so we know. And then once we know, we have to take action and follow it up, so we don't suffer from tzara'at or any other issue. And we're just blessed with amazing abundances. Like He says, if we diligently follow His Word, He will not put the same disease upon us that He put upon the Egyptians or the disobedient. And He will bless us abundantly if we separate, divide, and destroy every unclean thing. Alright, this is Paul Nisa with Torah Life Ministries. Everybody have a great Shabbat this coming Shabbat. If you have any comments or questions, post them below the video. Till then, everybody, shalom, shalom.
Torah Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.